so much. So as you're filtering in, I'm going to start off with two questions. The first one, what was the first digital creative tool that you remember using as a child? For me, it was Mac Paint on an original Mac. What are some of the tools that you use, the first digital creative tool? Anyone? Okay, remember that. Remember what you, if you get it, you may even remember what you created. The second question, what was the first coding tool you used? Most everybody remembers that. For me, it was a BASIC on a TRS-80 computer. And I remember the actually thing the code that I did. It was a graphical program. And the proposition of my talk today is, what if that is one tool? What if the first tool that somebody learned to code with is actually the same tool that they first learned that they can be creative graphically with? That is what creative coding is. Who am I? I'm Michael Scherotter. I have a mission, and I developed this mission a number of years ago, and it really is this. I discover and craft connections linking creative processes that delight me with technologies that fascinate me, sharing the results to inspire and motivate others. So at the end of this talk, if I have successfully inspired you to take this pen and draw, to be able to inspire you to see something, learn a term, to see something you can add to your Blockly experience, to be inspired by something in this talk, I have succeeded. That is what I'm going to try to do. I've spent the past 30 years with an education in architecture and a career in software, and I've really focused my career on that intersection of creativity and technology. I started off building CAD software. I moved to building mind mapping software, managing teams, doing technical evangelism. The past 16 years or so, I worked at Microsoft, working in advanced technical evangelism, technical project management, leading projects with our media customers and media partners. So for me, that intersection of creativity and technology is what drives me. I'm always looking, whenever I see a new technology, whether it's AI, whether it's block coding, what is the creative application of it? And the reason I do this is I feel that creative people need to see code as a tool, just like they see a paintbrush or a pen or a camera or a scrap of paper to do collage with. I have really focused my energy, where I can, on building creative apps and design tools. That is my passion. I've developed this passion through being creative throughout this whole time. Throughout the whole time that I've had my career in software, I have done creative things. For me, that creative thing has been filling journals like this over the past 30 years. I have about 25 of these. Actually did a sketch last night. I'll show it to you in a little moment from the view we had overlooking Little Bay there. And that aspect of me drawing, that is where I get ideas. I get creative ideas about how to combine things. That's, for me, that's an aspect of creativity. What if I combine this with that? That is what interests me and what excites me. And so when I found the possibility for me to combine my love of architecture, my architecture education, and the fact that my journals don't do well in galleries, I built a business called Galeryst, which creates 3D virtual galleries. What I'm talking about tonight has nothing to do, actually a little bit to do with that. And where is it? Wrong button. And so this is an example of what, for me, creativity and technology is. So this first image up here, middle of the pandemic, I get my inspiration from traveling. None of us could travel during the pandemic, but as a Microsoft employee, I had the ability to play a flight simulator, which actually uses AI to create a great amount of imagery, which I could basically fly to the middle of New York City, pause, and do a watercolor. That is intersection of creativity and technology for me. And so then I saw, for example, these images here are of an app that I built and released through the Microsoft Garage when I was an employee. And this is basically, I saw an idea of somebody creating a 360 sketch of basically standing at one point and drawing all the way around from one single vantage point. I saw an opportunity. I said, well, Microsoft a few years ago released a two-screen device. And so I had an experience that I could create to have viewing 3D in one screen or 360 in one screen and drawing on the other screen to create something. So I look for opportunities of how do you apply technology and creativity, because that's what drives me. And then of course, the 3D galleries, this is just an example of what one of those 3D galleries might look like. So I am always looking for opportunities for that creativity. And so if we look at this, I then see, okay, what's the next hottest technology out there? Well, of course, it's this generative AI. So our creative people, they get ideas. What do they do with the ideas? An idea came to me in a dream. I had a dream of me drawing, and as I drew, these amazing shapes came out of it. And I wanted to express that and remember it, but I knew I had, as a tool, as a creative person, I had something like Sora. I had an AI model where if I could describe my dream, I could have it visualized. That is how a creative person can use technology. That is what a creative technologist is. What I want to impress on you is that is who I want to create in our with students today. It isn't just a technologist who loves to code. It isn't a creative person who might want to do a lot of drawings on their digital pad. I want to see that artist feels that they can use code as a tool just like a paintbrush. I'm going to give you an example from my life that I saw this intersection. When I was in architecture school, we had a class where we learned structures. In structure, you have to figure out, does this beam, what size does that beam need to be so that it can hold up all of the roof load? And there are standard mathematical calculations that you do to figure this out. And so your homework assignment is, here's one beam load, figure this out. Here's another beam load, figure this out. And you have 10 beam loads to figure this out. So you sit down with a yellow sheet of graph paper and a calculator, and that is the assignment to do that. Well, my other classmates did that, but I said, I could plug this into a spreadsheet and just change the values here and do this. And what I saw was none of my other classmates knew what a spreadsheet was because they were architecture students at the time and this wasn't their tool. But it was a tool for me, and I knew that knowing how to take advantage of tools was my superpower. That's what I've carried with me throughout this time. So back to it. What I'm going to talk about is why creative coding. If you've heard the term before, creative coding is a term that's been used about coding that is non-functional. That means it doesn't solve a problem for you, but it is expressive. This is a term that you use tools like Cinder, Open Frameworks, P5.js. This is a tool that a person does to create something expressive. Used in like museum installations, art installations. DJs might use it to do the backdrop of what they do. So I took this term because it really meant, I adopted this term for what I created here. And what I looked at is, why do this? Well, one, graphics is fun. It's immediately rewarding. When I first started seeing the graphical tools of programs, there's things like you're moving a logo, you're moving a turtle around to do an interesting design. That was cool. It was very immediately rewarding and graphically. And graphically, it actually introduced mathematical concepts. And if I knew back in high school, for example, that matrices was the foundation of 3D computer graphs of computer gaming, I probably would have paid more attention at that time. But it isn't taught that way, for the most part. So, and also, as we see, these graphics are everywhere. That's why I look at creative coding. So, then it's like, well, why are we talking about this? Creative coding is an add-in for Adobe Express. Adobe Express is a free, web-based, it actually works on a tablet or a phone. It's a web-based graphic design tool for creating documents, videos, presentations, all sorts of stuff, lots of templates, fonts. It is for a non-professional user. Adobe is marketing it to students, Adobe to market it to professionals, all sorts of people who don't see themselves as a designer, but they need to do design. They're not seeing themselves as a video producer, but they need to make a video. So this is a really easy tool to use, and it also has a great add-on infrastructure, so that it is fairly easy to build an add-on for this. So I'm going to take you a little walkthrough of what this is. So you'll start up Adobe Express. You'll install the add-on Creative Coding, and it basically loads it up in this side pane. And then in this case, you'll select a script that comes preloaded with a number of scripts. And then you can basically edit these scripts where it brings up the Blockly interface here, where you have the code, the blocks, and then actually the code would be on the right. Sorry, the resolution isn't as good here. But a number of blocks you'll see to create things like rectangles, ellipses, all the different kind of graphical elements. And then with those, you'll be able to then run the code. And so this is, for example, creating a simple tangent curve. And so what if I took 4 of these and it created a star from that? So this is, for example, the code that would then call this code 4 times, doing rotations, and create a star from that. And so you can start taking code, assembling it in different pieces, and then having that code call another, and having a friend write some code. You can use that code. So it is really a integrated development environment for doing Blockly stuff inside of a real graphics tool. Almost every Blockly teaching tool that I've seen has some sort of way of doing graphics. That's great. But nobody would use these to create real graphics that they want to use for a flyer for their school, for a happy birthday card, for anything that they would do here. So it's the examples that I've given here is this is just a very simple example. And when you take this and you have the different elements that you want to put in, you have accessors to be able to say, rotate this, add this color, move this around here, or do these kind of things, or actually put a background color in there. So there's lots of things we can do with this. Examples are that I include a number of images from NASA, free open source images, so that they can include images in their code. I also have included, let me sort of go on to the next frame. So, for example, images and collections, it comes with a number of images. You can add your own images. I have the idea of data arrays, because that's something you'd code with. So a data array of numbers or a data array of words, you can use those as elements to code with. And then those appear in the Blockly interface as images that you could insert into your code, or actually collections. So these are sort of common concepts that I saw as important to implement in here. And then other things that you could have is user interface elements. So I have blocks for user interface elements. Those can then put into your code by just stacking them here. The end result are you can now use those code properties in your code, just like variables. And the end result here is you have user interface elements that are shown in here with really very easy to make input to your code. And then examples I've used, for example, I have notifications. So in the system, there is a set of validations that are running all the time when anything changes that I can validate. Okay, this can't be top level. So I'll do different validations that can happen during that. And then also be able to share scripts. I can download a script. I can upload a script. I can share it with a friend. I can share it with a classmate in that way. And then also, as this is a tool that could be used in a curriculum, there's a number of steps or progress steps to, at the end, earning a certificate. And the idea behind this is that at different times in the code, whether you write the code and save it or run it, I run through a certain validation steps. So I'm analyzing the Blockly scene graph to validate that certain of these conditions are met, and if they are, they'll get a star. If they get all the stars, they can then print out that certificate. Along with this, I actually looked at the printout. It would be about 80 pages of code documentation. Every one of the blocks shows how it could be used in a script. So I've written that, I've put that in there, and this is all me. So it's been a lot of work here, but it was something that I had a real passion for, because I saw it important to inspire kids to be creative. And so all of those help is directly accessible from the help context menu that goes in there. And then I even built parts that sort of integrate with my business, which is there are, for example, if you did have, anybody can create a single free gallery on Galeryst based upon images they have. So I added the ability to say, get artwork from your gallery and then put it in. If you want to make a program for a show you're going to have for your family for this, that's something you could do. But the idea is that I wanted to make something that can inspire people to do something creative with us. I did things like add multiple window support. This actually works better if you have multiple screens, because the limitations of I can't really put this side by side on a single screen with the Adobe Express interface, because there's some limitations there. They give you basically a sidebar, or I can do a full modal pop-up. So I've done things like that. And then, if you look at what a script might be, is that every script starts off with this canvas part. You put user interface elements there. You can create a piece of text here that say this is going to put input hello world. This takes its input value right there, and then a set of variables to a message and a position, and then input those variables into a text element, and I set its position. So pretty simple, straightforward way of going there. The last thing I want to show you through is sort of the way that I thought about the design of this, that every one of these creation functions, like create rectangle, it has this container in there where I can then set the setters for different values of that, instead of actually saying, having a parameter being that object. So it's sort of, I went through a number of iterations in the way that I designed this, and this is sort of what I came up to in there. And where I'm going to next is, this is the beginning of a journey for me. I created this on my own because it's something that I believed in. And if there are ways that you want to participate and work with me on this, of course you can provide feedback. You can help create curriculum more than what I have here. You can teach a class using this, create sample scripts. I'm looking to localize. I look like the option that the MakeCode team is using, and I look into that. Or you can work with me to create custom blocks. Everything's open here. If you see something that in here that you have an idea that might intersect with what you're doing, please reach out to me. That's all I have for now. Any questions?
We got one question, then we'll move on.
Yes.
I'm sorry if you might have already said this, but I'm just curious. Do you offer workshops, like virtual workshops of because I'm thinking of my team that you could walk them through how to use your platform, because this is fabulous.
I would love to.
Yeah.
And
so my team can be trained on how to use this and.
Definitely.
Okay.
It's, the thing is that Adobe Express is a great tool as is.
Yeah.
And it has a bunch of capabilities to write code for it, but no user-facing automation. This basically adds user-facing automation to that, in this whole Blockly environment. But yeah, reach out to me after the talk.
All right. Thank you so much, Michael.
Thank you.